Hello, and welcome to Views from the Fort,
a podcast brought to you by
Bianca
and Amber.
Today we will be discussing chapters 3 to 5 in project-based learning.
So first we'll be discussing chapter 3, which is titled Imagining the Possibilities. So first they discuss what's most important.
The more complex and important an idea is, the better suited it is for a project. So first, as a professor or a teacher, you need to identify the big ideas, and the more complex a project is, the more work a student will have to put into a project, which means they'll learn more from it.
Because students are more likely to give all of their effort into a project and be more involved if they feel like it is related to them.
Good projects connect students to their life experiences and things they have gone through. The next section is what's the big idea?
So the book discusses reviewing your content standards and the table of contents in your text to be able to find the big idea in your curriculum. Now, the big idea that you find is what you can base your project off of.
Wikis are also discussed. They allow students to organize their thinking and track their action to plan a project. I know in this class we do a lot of wikis, which allow us to see our process before turning in our final project.
So the next thing that is discussed is planning for rigor and digital age skills. So the big idea is important, but in addition, you must think of how you want the project to impact your students' skills.
So using pre-planned thinking helps you to come up with better projects for your students. The suggested thought process is analyze, evaluate, and create.
And to break that down a little bit more, analyzing is really examining and comparing different things, and it's really like your first step in choosing the different things for your project. Second, you go into your evaluating. So you're selecting them and verifying that it is good for your students. And then third, you go and create your project. So that's where you're actually taking the things that you did analyze and evaluate, and you're really creating, imagining, and designing your project for your students.
The next section is digital age literacies. Basically what this is knowing that with the age we are currently in and teaching, technology is on the rise, and we have to adapt to that and know that it's an opportunity to teach students technologically and give them media literacy in addition to the content that they have to know.
So the last thing discussed in this chapter is keeping your students in mind. So why should your students care about the project idea?
As a teacher, you need to think about it from your students' point of view. Will the project you're proposing be interesting to them? What activities, experiences, and tools will excite them?
In the end, projects with passion help to make the learning experience personable.
So chapter 4 is titled Strategies for Discovery. The first section is Overcoming Pitfalls. The book suggests that teachers look past the flashy, exciting assignments and instead pay attention to the quality of their students' experience.
So they actually suggest a few pitfalls. So some of them suggested were, 1, a long project the students don't get much out of. So you don't want students to put a bunch of effort into something and not really learn a lot from it. Another one they mentioned were assessments that don't feel authentic. You want the students to feel engaged and you want them to feel connected. You don't want it to seem like it's fake or like what they're doing doesn't actually matter. And third, they suggest avoiding projects that are overly scripted with too many steps, which keep them from being unique. If you give the students too many steps, it doesn't allow them to be individual in their projects. The next thing discussed in this chapter is designing terrific projects, getting started.
So to engage your students, you really need to provide an environment and a situation in which they want to learn more. A way they want to learn more could be through asking questions or needing to know something that they don't already know, which will allow them to be more involved in the project.
Chapter 5 is entitled Making Assessment Meaningful. So the first section talked about is authentic assessments in project-based learning. So it's been hard to grade projects in the past, but now by developing a common understanding through scoring rubrics, teachers and students can agree on a common ground.
The next section is titled Plan for Summative Assessments. So as a teacher, you must first assess if the planned learning outcomes are even achievable for your students. Then you must find a way to determine if that learning has happened. Many examples are given in the book, but our favorite was a second grade teacher who makes a checklist in which she can test for attainment and vocabulary growth. The students during this time are also enjoying the project by acting out what they want to be when they grow up.
So for the next two sections, we went ahead and lumped them together, both school-wide rubrics and building your own rubric. So rubrics are a way for teachers to grade a student's work based off of groups of criteria. Rubrics state levels of achievement that are communicated as expectations of the student. Oftentimes, a rubric is handed out before the project is due.
And many schools produce basic rubrics for their teachers to follow. Teachers sometimes do customize the basic form to better fit their own project.
Now, on the other hand, when a teacher builds their own rubric, they think about three big categories. Those are knowledge, skills, and processes. Each of these three categories are evaluated against levels of achievement.
The next section is Plan for Formative Assessment. So formative assessment allows teachers to track the progress of their students throughout the assigned project. This allows them to make adjustments as needed throughout the student's learning. Teachers can do this by setting milestones, planning check-ins, and looking for other progress markers in order to make sure that their students are on track.
We hope that you learned more about project-based learning.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye!